If you clicked on this video, you're probably wondering if the Clutch Max clutch is the best clutch for you. This is a cheap and affordable kit, but might not be the best for drag racing, but let's find out. So this kit comes with a bigger clutch than my factory one. I also went with ARP flywheel bolts to make sure it's torqued down correctly. I also ended up buying pressure plate bolts because this kit does not come with pressure plate bolts. I am also running a slave cylinder spacer. The link will be down in the bio because this is a 3.7 Mustang application and this is a 5.0 clutch. So here are all the parts that the kit does come with and some of the parts that you'll need to pick up. But just remember guys, this project's gonna take you a lot longer than expected, so pick yourself up a 6-pack of brain juice and go down and subscribe. So if you're in the market for a new clutch, you're either about to be pushing big power or your stock clutch is starting to slip. The reason why I went with Clutch Max's clutch is because it had a lighter flywheel than my OEM one. It had the horsepower and torque rating that I plan on trying to achieve, and it was also within my budget compared where all the other clutches in this small niche are way overpriced. And for the same price, I would only be getting a clutch and it's only rated for 450 wheels. So I might as well have just bought an OEM one at that point.
All right, so I'm actually going to time myself and see how long this takes because I have music, I got my brain juice, I'm ready to rock and roll. And a lot of times when car projects, it only take 2 or 3 hours. Usually it's safe to say throw on an extra 6. So I officially have the car all the way jacked up, and this is one of the most crucial parts. I've always done car projects where I don't jack up the car high enough and it makes it more difficult for me. So now that the car is jacked up, my goal is I think I can get this project done in 6 hours. Starting the timer now. If you think I can get this done in 6 hours, go down and hit the like button. It is 12:48, so basically 1 o'clock, so 6 hours, 7 o'clock. I think it's doable. Let's start that timer. Boom. Let's quit wasting time. And hey, let's get cranking. So necessarily you don't have to do this first, but I recommend doing it first because most of the time you will forget, kind of like me. So take off your shift ball and then make sure that your boot is not like held onto it or attached to it. So see, I can pull mine off, boom, ready to go to drop the trans.
After taking off the shift boot, you're going to want to take off your exhaust, but mine is fully welded together because I am a doofus and it makes it very difficult to get my drive shaft out, so don't be like me. Ugh.
Okay, now since the drive shaft is out, what I recommend since you're already down here is I believe there's only 3 sensors on the trans, which there's one right there, which I've already unplugged. And then I believe there's 2 on the passenger side, but I'll show you once the trans is down. So the next thing I'm going to start doing is taking off the starter, which I can't see if it's over here. The 2 starter bolts, take off the starter, and then while I'm also at it, I'm going to take off the slave cylinder hydraulic fluid line. So the next thing that you're going to want to do is after you have the starter and the hydraulic fluid line out, you're going to drop the trans brace, but make sure it is supported by a jack so it doesn't just come falling down on top of you. And once you have the trans brace out, you're going to start loosening the bolts very carefully of the trans from the motor. And pulling the motor, I thought I was going to do it by myself, but I realized dropping a trans is very expensive and I would much rather decrease the chances of dropping it and saving money in my pocket. So my friend Tanner came over to help. Yes, sir.
If you guys have been around the channel, you should recognize him, but I'll update you guys once I either drop the trans good and it's in one piece, or I'll update you guys when we drop it and it's in multiple pieces.
So I don't really want to talk about it, but we're sitting at 4 hours, 11 minutes, almost 12 minutes, and don't fall. Coming out here. Thank you, Cameron. Thank you for Tanner for helping. Yeah. Most difficult part of the trans, trying to get the 2 top bolts, which I will show you what I'm. Here are the 2 top bolts that I was struggling to get to. This one and this one. So trans is dropped. You can see here all the cords were disconnected, and the one thing I honestly did forget is if you look up here, the shift linkage that actually bolts up to the body or the chassis of the car, I did not unbolt the 2 10 mils, so did that. Coming over here, here's the old slave cylinder. I've definitely seen better days. I used a bag and a zip tie to zip tie up the bag to stop the hydraulic fluid from dripping, but I might as well just bleed the brakes at this point. So, and if you don't know, your brakes and your clutch are connected to the same thing, and there's the clutch. So there's a couple bolts on the outside of that pressure plate that will relieve the pressure plate, and I'm gonna use the alignment tool to pull off the pressure plate and the clutch at the same time. It's a pain to get the transmission bolts off the top, just because of, I couldn't get it from the top because of the blower, and on the bottom it's like you're just reaching and fingering around to find the bolts. So definitely more difficult than expected, but you know, this is life. I'm gonna try to leave the trans underneath here, swap the slave cylinder, and also add the clutch or the slave cylinder spacer, and then swap the clutch with the clutch here, which might make it a little bit more difficult, but at least it's changed and I didn't lug around the transmission everywhere. Alright, so finally got the clutch out. You can see obviously this pressure plate has seen better days. I mean, honestly not that bad. On my last Mustang I definitely did more damage to the pressure plate. The clutch is not 100% shot, I would say, but you can see it's definitely worn down. If you come over here, the camera focuses, you can see some heat cracks right here. So I mean, it was on its way out. It was slipping a little bit after pull, so I mean, I'm glad I'm changing it now, and then by summertime I'll be able to actually do some real pulls. Day 2 of this hell. So just ran up to the auto parts store. I got some new M6 grade 8 bolts that are, I believe these are 25 millimeters that come with the spacer, and you need basically 36 millimeters, but I ran up to O'Reilly's and the closest thing I could find was 35 millimeters, so we're gonna run with that, and here I'll show you. Here are the bolts that I will be using. Attach the slave cylinder to the spacer to the trans, and then next I'm going to start taking off the bolts for the flywheel to swap on the new flywheel. So we are assembling the clutch, and well, I shouldn't say assembling the clutch. We are setting it up so we know where to put all of our dials on our flywheel. So we have put around the Ford Performance pressure plate bolt around, and then we found or located the holes where the dial pins go. So we're gonna give them a little gentle persuasion, tap them into place, and then we can call the flywheel done. So re-looking at the flywheel, there are actually different threaded bolt holes. So if you want to run a smaller clutch with a more high performance clutch, this flywheel would also work. But unfortunately, from my research, I was looking at a gentleman who was doing a higher performance clutch, so I bought the bolts that are correct for his application but wrong for mine. So I'm actually reusing my stock pressure plate bolts, which still fit, and also thread into the flywheel still. So if you are going to run the same one as me, which I believe is a stage 2 4-sprung clutch, whatever, just like the OEM one, but it's rated for like 600 wheels, so you will have to use your OEM bolts, and or if you want to do ARP, or I'm assuming Ford Performance parts. I don't think ARP has these, but you get what I'm saying. You reuse these for the same clutch that I'm using. All right, if you're doing this job by yourself and you're kind of like a little guy like me, I'm not that big, I mean, you get what I'm saying. Be very careful taking out this flywheel. Ford, this is a health hazard, trying to get this out, because I think I might have broken a couple fingers trying to get that out. But you know, I didn't guillotine myself. So we're one step closer. Looking at the flywheel, this thing is a unit. This thing is massive. Honestly, there are some hot spots, but honestly, I was pretty nice to this clutch. Well, this flywheel, I should say. Honestly, I didn't do that many clutch drops and all that compared to my last Mustang, but I mean, this with the lightweight flywheel is going to be a huge upgrade, because this, very difficult to catch when it's falling at your face. This, I could do plenty of reps of this above my head. I'm pretty sure it's 35 or 32 pounds, 16 pounds. Tell me which one you want in your car. And by the way, this is also chromoly steel, so it's not aluminum, so yeah. Okay, so now with the new slave cylinder, this will save you some time and also some, actually, well, my left leg probably needs the extra work. But what we're gonna do is I'm gonna pour some brake fluid inside of a red Solo cup, and or something that will hold this and won't get eaten by this, but I'm assuming this won't eat anything. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna compress the slave cylinder, dip in the hydraulic line to suck up some fluid. I'll come over here, press down on it when it's pointing up to make sure all the air that is in here will work its way up, and right when fluid comes out, you stop, come back, fill it up more. So then that's going to save you a lot of time instead of pumping. But all right, this is going to be a little bit difficult to film by myself, so I have all my ARP flywheel bolts laid out, and so it comes with ARP, a fastener assembly lube. But I already have one open since we just built that motor, so I just kind of traded with the old stuff. So I'm going to use this. I'm going to bring a piece of cardboard underneath the car. I marked this one with a Sharpie, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the flywheel in place, put this one in as a holder, and then the rest of these I will apply the fastener lube and some blue Loctite down on the end. So we'll put blue Loctite on the end of the bolt, and then we'll put the fastener lube up by the head, and we'll put all these in, and then at the very end I'll take this one back out and then put it in. And then we will be torquing this down to 70 foot-pounds, and then making sure we're doing a star pattern to evenly like disperse the load onto the, I guess the rear pirate bearing. But that's another thing. Okay, so as installing the new Coyote clutch to the 3.7, whenever I stuck my finger in on, this is my old motor that came out of the MT82 car already, and I can stick my finger in, there's a nice hole, right? I went to go stick my finger in the motor that we put in that was out of an automatic. So if you know anything about it, manuals have a pilot bearing spot to put it in where the automatics don't, right? And I've been running it raw without a bearing. So I already know what the comments are gonna say, but now my trains is gonna feel so much better, and we're gonna install this pilot bearing, and that's gonna make it feel significantly better. So 2 upgrades, pilot bearing, new clutch. Sean, how do you feel about that?
It's just big golden clip.
Yeah, I don't got anything for you yet. This is primal hour. We're using our will to live to tighten these 10 mils on the slave cylinder. And then we become the slaves to these weekend projects that only are supposed to take 6 minutes.
I mean, this angle on my hand right here?
90 degree looking. That's a 30, 60, 90 triangle.
Yeah, that's
right
like, I don't know what's going on there.
We're flamboyant. Yes!
Yes!
Camaro on.
That's what Cole's hand looks like.
You're damn right.
Oh no. Goodbye. Yeah, if you could see, there's no pilot bearing in there at all. I wonder how this motor got in there.
No comment. I'm not taking questions right now. Bring it home, John B!
Bring it on home, John B!
The clutch that came out, there was a lip like this, and that's engine side, where this one, since it's a Coyote, since this one, or I guess that one is domed, this one will actually be lip outside of the clutch. So now we're about to bolt up the pressure plate and align it with the plastic tool and get this in and get the install officially done and put everything back together. But all the bolts, I looked online and they said that they needed to be torqued down to 12 to 24 foot-pounds. So I did right at 20. Next, we're gonna try to stab the trans, and then I get to put up the drive shaft and the exhaust and start buttoning things up. So we're almost there, quote unquote. It is past 12 o'clock. It is the second day. We're still on the 6th hour somehow. I can't explain why or how, but the clutch is maybe half an inch away, or maybe a little bit smaller than that. It is almost there, but we ended up calling it because Tanner, who was helping me, he got hydraulic fluid in the eye, so he went to the emergency room, I should say. And while we were waiting on him, my dad came to help me. Of course, we were waiting for every text and phone call from Tanner to get the update of how the eye is doing. But me and my dad were also trying to continue to work on the trans if the light would click back on. While we were doing that, my dad, well, obviously both of us thought we should put on safety glasses because, I mean, we're working with a liquid above us that is dripping down. So I was trying to be careful with it, and we were trying to be aware, but with us shaking the trans, it caused the bag and everything to shake. And also, if we're putting pressure on the fingers of the pressure plate, it's gonna press fluid that we put into the slave cylinder before. We got less than 12 hours to get this together, driving and back up to school. So, to be continued. So it's about 12:30. It is Sunday. I need to be leaving today to head back up to school. Me and my dad just got the trans all the way in. We got all the bolts started, snugged up, and the trans is pressed up against the motor. So I do need to go around and tighten up all the bolts, but I actually gotten the jack out from underneath the trans. Right now, I mean, I still have it there and I jacked it up, but there might be a little bit of pressure, but just because I don't trust it because I just took this out and it's also me. But all the motor bolts are in, the brace is in and tightened in, so now I'm just gonna go around and make sure all the bolts to the trans are tight, and then I can start putting in the dry shaft again. Right there, 6 hours. It only took 3 days and 6 hours. Since we did it within the 6 hours, I didn't say how many days, you have to hit the like button. But now, here's the last part. So everything that we've done to it already, we just redid. So basically what I mean by that is everything we took off, we re-put back on. Nothing complicated. Pressure plates on. One thing I did run into though is, well, you guys are not going to be able to see it, but wherever the hydraulic fluid line comes out of the transmission, then you connect it to the, well, it goes up to your master cylinder. Mine had a little plastic ring around it, and that's what guided it out of the trans. So make sure whenever you run the spacer, oh yeah, I guess that would work too. Whenever you run the hydraulic spacer for the 5.0 clutch, make sure you bend this hose back, because this was not designed for the spacer. So make sure that sticks out all the way. Because what happened to us was we stuck it in, but when I went to go connect the hydraulic line, the clip wasn't long enough. And plus every time I pushed on it, it would like go back a little bit. So make sure you do that before you put the trans up. Well, connect it and then go up. But you get what I'm saying now. But now we have put on the drive shaft, we put on the exhaust, we put on everything. I just threw the car on a battery charger. Since this only took us 3 days, the battery's probably dead. I'm about to start pumping with the leg, and then we'll be ready for our first startup. So let's get pumping. Since we're about to put in new brake fluid, I'm actually going to take a turkey baster and get whatever I can get out of the master and get rid of that old gunky stuff, since we already have new .34. Yeah.
Do it a couple times. Yeah, do it like 5 real fast and then push it all the way to the floor.
You're a rhythm guy.
I hear it doing something.
It's getting there.
I mean, can you feel a difference in the pedal?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, now push it down. Ow! The pedal, but it's not just slamming to the bottom.
Yeah, I can see it getting heavier.
No, Lefty needs a workout.
All right, so what's going on down there? Yeah, can somebody give him a beat?
Oh, yeah.
Sound like suburban white guys on the.
Cameron, I could never have the color of it, but I love the color of your car.
Alright, so now we've pumped it. I think it's good enough for the car to at least start. I want to keep pumping it. I don't know if I'm going to drive it tonight, and we'll get the first reaction of how the clutch feels and all that tomorrow, but I'll probably start it, let it warm up, because it hasn't started in a couple days, and keep pumping up the clutch. So let's see how this thing sounds. Good morning, guys. So the car, I scooted it back a little bit. So technically, I moved the car, but I wouldn't really consider it its first drive. I mean, it went into gear, and I had to see if it was gonna go into gear, and it backed up and did everything it needed to. So this is as far as the car made it. So we're gonna do a cold start, and then we're gonna see how the clutch feels. Last night, I did pump it a lot, but it still feels like there's some room to go. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'll probably go around the block, or if it will go around the block, give you guys my honest review and probably put in more fluid. And so if you guys like to see further review of this clutch and flywheel, go down, hit the subscribe button so you can keep up with the build, so I can start doing launches, rolls, and all this, because I can't wait to get on this thing again. It's already been 4 days and I'm kind of starting to itch, you know what I mean? The AFR got a little bit richer, but that's what I would assume with a lighter flywheel. So let's try to back this thing up and see how it feels cruising around the block. All right, here we go. First cruise in the GG. Wow, the engagement point is a little bit sooner than I expected. The other thing to keep in perspective is the stock 3.7 clutch for this NT82 also had 4 springs, where this clutch had 6. So just cruising, it feels really good. It probably still needs a little bit more fluid and bleeding, but as of right now, it is working. It is shifting, everything seems good. And so there's a lot of videos on the internet about Clutch Max, and there's another big brand, I'm trying to remember what it is. Everyone says like, oh, great for street driving, daily driving, but not good for the drag strip. But also all the videos and also reviews I've seen, people have either mentioned they didn't let the clutch break in of up to 500 miles, or they just just got straight onto it. So I'm actually very curious to see how this clutch is gonna hold up. And I mean, first of all, the surface area compared to the 3.7 clutch is almost like half an inch bigger than the original clutch disc. So right now, I mean, it's driving great. So far, I'm pretty happy with this. And just like, I can't really get on it, but just big towing it. I feel like the car should have came this way from factory. I don't know why Ford ended up giving all of us 35-pound flywheels or 32-pound flywheels or whatever it was, which is outrageous. But this feels so much better. It feels a lot more responsive. I can probably understand where people are coming from when they say, oh, it's so light, you're just gonna spin the tires off the launch, but I mean, just get better tires. So I also kind of forgot, with today being Monday and it's not the weekend no more, there's a lot of people out because it's like normal business week hours, you know what I mean? So I'm probably gonna rev it. Hopefully all these passing cars don't drown out my car, which I highly doubt, and hopefully I don't disturb all these people behind me, but we're just gonna be quick. So I hope you guys enjoy. All right, with the car back home and it cooling off, so honestly, a couple things I've learned from this weekend. So honestly, the project wasn't that bad. Slave cylinder, flywheel, master cylinder. That bad. It could have been way better if I would have done things a little bit differently. Just make sure your car is higher off the ground than bare minimum, because this sounds great because it's less room for the trans to fall, but having just this much more extension gives you a lot more leverage on working underneath there. And also, not everyone's as thin as me. So yeah, that's an issue. But honestly, the clutch feels great so far. And I took off the slave cylinder cap and there's still a lot of fluid right up here. So I'm gonna try to jack it up just a little bit and try to give it a couple more pumps just to get the rest out. But I think it's just because I'm used to that four spring clutch compared to the 6 spring and the lightweight flywheel. So it feels kind of crazy. It's definitely going to take me a little bit to get used to, but it feels great. I love the shifts. Also, with having a pilot bearing in there, it feels a lot more, I have a lot more confidence in shifting. So pretty happy with this. If you guys did enjoy this video, go hit the subscribe button, go hit the like button. If you guys want to see how this clutch holds up or if it blows up, subscribe and see how this journey goes. So hope to see you guys on the next video. Roddy's Rides out of here.